how to write a theoretical framework. In this video, we explain about how to write a theoretical framework. A theoretical framework can increase the validity of your research, and your empirical results can find a reliable theoretical analysis. To add a theoretical framework, researchers often add a theoretical framework section just after the introduction section or before methodology section, and in this way they highlight the theoretical basis of their methodology. For example, an econometric and regression estimation needs a theoretical basis. A regression without a theoretical basis cannot have a solid meaning. So it comes mainly after introduction or before methodology section. And for theoretical framework, researchers use different approaches. For example, a group use the established hypotheses and theories. Some group uses hypotheses specifically defined for their own research, and they can use figure to graphically show the theoretical framework. For the first group, for example, this paper, as you can see, this is introduction section, and just after introduction section it proposes the theoretical framework, and instead of a theoretical framework title, it uses a title that shows the specific term of the topic, strong versus weak sustainability, and it explains these two concepts, and also it uses figures for this explanation, and also uses another figure to explain the concept of strong and weak sustainability as a theoretical framework. And in this way it highlights that our research, our empirical investigation has a theoretical basis. Another example is this one. This paper uses Hay model or Day model, and based on these two established models, it shows this graph, and using this graph it shows that health, transportation, economy and environment are interconnected in this way. And based on this theory, based on this model, this research specifies these regressions. So these regressions have a theoretical basis, and in this way the results are reliable and interpretable. But another group of studies uses a specific hypothesis, the hypothesis that are specifically defined in this study. For example, in this study it specifically uses GDP, carbon dioxide emissions and life expectancy, and using these three variables it defines the theoretical framework, but specifically for their own study. And based on before this it explains how GDP is connected with carbon dioxide emissions, and also how these emissions is interconnected with life expectancy, and how life expectancy is connected with GDP. And after some theories and analysis, then it specifies the empirical regression and models. So the results of the regressions, the estimations can produce reliable and interpretable results. Another group of studies, maybe as another example, for example, this study in the theoretical framework, it explains how economic complexity is related to energy efficiency. and also how economic complexity is related to renewable energy. And after the theoretical analysis, then it proposes its own specific hypothesis. Some of the studies that uses their own specific hypothesis, they have long explanations using different equations. For example, this study assumes that household sector has a specific behavior, and the behavior of the household is explained by many equations and by many assumptions. And then it assumes that enterprise section also has some specific behaviors, and also it continues with explaining the assumed behaviors of the enterprise sector. So in this way, it proposes the theoretical framework section. So it is another kind of theoretical section. And some studies uses figure and graphical features for showing their own theoretical framework. For example, this study, after explaining how the elements are interconnected with each other, then it proposes the hypothesis as, for example, H1, H3A, H3B, and H2. And it uses these H's in the figures to show each hypothesis is placed where among the network relationships of the variables. And papers in the field of management, in the major of management, usually and often have some theoretical framework. For example, it is one of the papers in the journal. Theoretical framework is a section in the paper. For example, it is in Journal of International Management, so it's a journal in the field of management. And also the second paper of this journal, as you can see, it has some problematizing concept clarity, a section similar to theoretical framework. And the third paper, as you can see, theoretical background and hypothesis, a little different title, but the same core, the same concept. For example, another paper of this journal, again, theoretical background and hypothesis. And also, for example, another paper, theory background and hypothesis. As you can see, papers in management usually and often use theoretical framework.